Welcome to the first episode of the 2025-26 Scholastic School Year season. This is CNY Sports Authority. I'm Jay Lehmann. The brackets for sectionals for boys soccer, girls soccer, and field hockey have been released. We are going to talk to Ryan Houck, an assistant coach who is also a crazy mathematician and has been doing his own BTM models, to talk about what the heck BTM is. And, it's been a while. I apologize. We've been super busy. We're up to 11,000 followers on Instagram. So thank you for following along. We're trying to plan a leadership conference. There's so much going on. That's why this is the first show of the season, but I couldn't pass up on our opportunity to present to you our picks. Before we dive into the brackets, though, let's talk about how we even got here.
The whole world was a playground until the sun went down.
All right, joining me now is Ryan Houck, math teacher and assistant coach for boys soccer over at the reigning state champion Class D Hamilton. He's been following the numbers behind the scenes, crunching the data, and he's got some strong thoughts on the BTM. Ryan, it's great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Jay.
For the listeners who might not know, what exactly is the BTM and how does it calculate team rankings?
All right, so the BTM, the Bradley-Terry model, is a mathematical equation or formula that does paired comparison. So basically it takes a look at, Team A played Team B, it analyzes their outcome, and then Team B plays Team C, analyzes that outcome, and it could tell you about how good Team A could do against Team C. In our model, the high school sports stats model, it does that across 86 different teams in all six classes.
That seems like a lot of numbers. On paper, it sounds like it's objective. What factors actually go into it? Strength of schedule, goal differential, opponent record, what is it using to calculate these scores?
Yeah, so it's while the spreadsheet is pretty massive, I have my own. I think it's about 900 columns or rows long. Shockingly, it doesn't really take too much information into account initially. So it's purely looking at, is it a win or is it a loss? And then typically it just does like the home team versus the away team and fills it in that way. So the home team was Fowler, the away team was Fulton, the home team won. And that is how it starts by building your data for you. Interestingly, in 1952, when the Bradley-Terry came out, there was no way to determine ties. So 1970, the Davidson, there's a paper that's been published, and it's highly accepted by all the math circles out there. That came through and integrated a way to do ties with a tie variable. I think early on, actually in the first iterations of it, the high school sports stats was not using the Davidson because, if I remember correctly, the tie games just didn't count towards seeding. It looks like they've gone to using the Davidson. I can't say that for certain. So all that's to say, there are variables that do matter. So Bradley-Terry, it looks at the wins and the losses. It has a learning rate, which basically it's how it's taking the data in and how important that data is to it, especially early data versus later data. Our Bradley-Terry, I believe, batches everything in one giant chunk, as opposed to, if you're familiar with chess and ELO, or even you're ranking in a game like Overwatch or something like that, that has a rolling ranking. That's an ELO score. That's an entirely different thing that our Bradley-Terry doesn't do.
So would that weight, maybe you're on a hot streak and playing really well now, would that play a factor versus beating a team really early in the season?
Yeah, so if we did an ELO model, it would absolutely do that. And I ran one because I was curious, and even with my K factor really, really low, I had a hundredth of a point, recency bias played such a large role in it that it doesn't seem like it is an appropriate model to use, especially in like a 16-game season.
Nice. All right. So I feel like I fielded every single season for the past few years. A lot of criticism about this ranking system. What seems to be the biggest criticism people have about the BTM system?
So the biggest criticism is it's a black box, right? Like stuff goes in and numbers get kicked out. And I don't think anybody understands where those numbers come from. Those numbers were formed. Even the BTM ranking that we see on high school sports stats, that's not actually your Bradley Terry ranking. So Bradley Terry is a logarithmic ranking that then gets converted into an ability score. And that's how you weigh the ability or the probability of a game to happen, right? So they take your ability score and then divide it by the sum of the opponent and your ability score, right? So, and those ability scores can go anywhere from like really like 18 decimals out close to zero to I've got teams with ability scores in the 2 to 3 thousands. The score that we see on the BTM ranking is actually the overall pairwise average. So it takes that formula I just told you and it does it for your school versus every other school in the section, and then shoots out what your pairwise average would be. So let's say you had a 0.75, that's saying on average you would beat 75% of the schools in the section. Where it's not good is like if you're a 0.75 and you're a 0.55, and it only looks like a 200-point difference, which doesn't really seem like that big of a deal. But without knowing their ability scores, that could actually be like an 8x difference or 12x difference. And there's no way to really tell just how strong you are based off of those scores.
Gotcha. So it's sort of doing a large mathematical equation. Almost if you look at your BTM score, it's telling you what your percent chance of beating any team in the entire section is.
Yeah, pretty much. So like you look at some of the absolute highest schools, I think West Hill's usually pretty high. So they're a 0.94. So roughly if they were to play anybody in the section, they're going to beat 94% of the teams or win 94% of the time.
Nice. I think that's way easier to understand than just like these random numbers that are out there. Like it's your percent chance. Because I think one criticism that comes up frequently is people keep talking about class. And they're like, well, we played all of these Class A schools or B schools and we're a C and a D. Why aren't we being helped by this?
Yeah, so that goes back to our old seeding model, right? So we used 5 points if you beat a class higher than you, 4 points if you beat a class of your size, and 3 points if you beat a class lower than you. And coaches, we knew that system for a long time, and honestly, we knew how to abuse it. So what would you do? You'd schedule the weaker, higher class schools. If you were a low class school that was good, nobody wanted to play you because losing was even more detrimental. So everybody gets stuck on this idea that like, well, the class of the school is what determines their success. And while that can be partly true, like we see Class D schools beat Class C or B schools all the time. Hamilton has beat RFA in the past, which is a AAA school. So class should not be the sole determinator of how hard the opponent is. Really looking at their common opponents and seeing how they perform against one another is what helps you. And that's what the BTM does try to do.
Yeah, I think it is a solid sort of strength of schedule base. And I think that's something, I think you bring up a good point that like ADs and coaches just understood the old system and they're really struggling with coping with the BTM shift. And that now you need to start looking at the end of the season at everybody's BTM scores. And if you want to challenge yourself, if you want to improve your ranking, you got to target people that have high BTM scores, regardless of class.
Yeah, and So it's twofold, right? You want to challenge good teams. Losing to a good team is less detrimental than beating a bad team in the BTM. So you always want to be losing to good teams. Take a look at Fabius Pompey, record of 8-7-1. They're number 2 in the BTM in Class D. Why? Because they lost to a lot of really good teams. And then the other factor that you have to take in, and this is the more important factor, is interleague play or eliminating regionality, right? So because it is paired comparison, if you're not playing teams from, the Frontier League, from the Patriot League, from the CCL and the CSC, if you're just sticking within your bubble and you don't branch out, what happens is nobody knows how good you are comparatively to everybody else. So at Hamilton, one of the things we really strive to do is get into tournaments or play where we can face other people in other leagues. So we get that crossover play, and it helps the BTM to even out.
Right. You sort of have to pop your own bubble. Otherwise, you're sort of internalized. And I think that's one of these interesting aspects of the BTM is you can be in this bubble, and if you are that entire bubble is going to shift with somebody who's willing to step outside that bubble, and then you're at the mercy of that, which is kind of crazy. Do you think that the metric gives an unfair advantage to certain schools? Does it help being a bigger school, or does it help being in a certain league? Is there too much weight on that because of the way that we schedule, or is that something we need to adapt to, or is that just something we're going to have to accept as a BTM?
I think it's the Frontier League. If you were to look at any one league that has the biggest advantage or disadvantage, I would say the biggest disadvantage goes to the Frontier League, in that they have very little crossover play. And more so when they do have crossover play. So, for instance, this year, Lime played Fabius Pompey. Lime lost to Fabius 1-0 in a very, very competitive game. Fabius is a very good team. Lime's a very good team. The entire North Country took a shift down based on the result of that one game. And it's in my own spreadsheet. I've monkeyed with it, and I've reversed the result of that game. And the entire North Country takes a massive shift upwards if you reverse that result. So I think the more centrally located teams, I think the Patriot League, but I think when you're looking at those teams, the Luddens, the Grinds, when you're looking at regionality, if you're looking at the Utica, Syracuse area schools, they're going to have better teams nearby. It kind of makes sense. Population density, it's closer to, your elite travel programs and all that. So they get to just play naturally better competition. Again, you go to Fabius Pompey, they're playing great competition, partly because it's their league.
Right.
So
yeah, I think your point on the Frontier League is really important to understand, because I feel bad because I always get criticized, where's the love for up north teams? But it is this sort of systematic problem of schools are unwilling to travel that far and pay for travel that far. And so there's this sort of bubble that gets created in the North Country that, I know our AD or our superintendent last year told us that we couldn't travel over an hour and a half to play a non-league game. So that takes out the entire North Country. We aren't allowed to play them. And it's regionally based. And without those crossovers, the BTM is really handcuffed.
Yeah, absolutely. They crossover play with Section 10 more than they crossover play down here.
Right, and we don't use section out of section games within the BTM yet. I think data is an interesting thing too, because one of the issues that we have with this system is it is reliant on coaches putting in and being the sole input, and making sure that input is done correctly. And while I'm a head coach and I would like to say that the system's really easy to use, because it is really easy to use, there are some that struggle with that input. And an incorrect input can have huge ramifications in the system.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So we had 2 incidents this year in just Section 3 boys soccer alone. So, a Stockbridge and
Frankfurt
Scholar game. For a long while, Stockbridge was input incorrectly as a section team. So that wasn't going to be affecting the BTM. And most recently, we had an issue where Remsen was showing 13 games for a seeding record, but all 14 Section 3 opponents had their records registered. So it creates some asymmetrical data. We don't know, or I don't know. I was able to contact Phil Abel, who's super great at being responsive to me, by the way. I'm probably a thorn in his side because I'm the only guy with a spreadsheet at home.
I've had to deal with a phone call with Phil. He is a wonderful guy to work with.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So he was able to, resolve what he and I think was most likely a UI error. But we talked briefly about that, right? So one of the things he notices is coaches will put in the first half score, the second half score, but they won't put in the final score and hit save. And he actually has to go back through and manually fix those sometimes. That's
so from my end, that is the most annoying thing in the world because it doesn't input any of the stats that you have put in either. So I don't know who scored any of the goals. I can tell what the end result was because it says it's in the second half, but I don't know any of the actual information for that.
Yeah. And while we're on it, some coaches aren't putting in their stats, right? Which the system is really great. And if you play around in the coaches console, you can get some really cool statistical analysis, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But when a handful of coaches don't want to put in the statistics, you're shortchanging the kids. You're not giving them the credit that they deserve. Awards are going to be based off of this. And where can you gather information? Well, you can gather it here. So when you're not doing that, that really hampers things. So I encourage coaches, get out there, put in your data correctly. I know you have a gripe about goalkeeper stats. They seem to not be put in well either.
Yes. The goals against. Coaches always forget about the goals against.
On the flip side, when you get to the state tournament, we often talk about this as a coaches group at Hamilton. We provide, unfortunately, some of the best scouting in the area for other teams in the state tournament because we do have such a robust statistical analysis that goes on in high school sports stats. So anybody that knows to look there from another section can really see all the data, which is
right. Well, and I think that's another gripe that I have is there are so many coaches that are doing the right thing and reporting and giving the players the credit that they deserve. And then there is 1 or 2 coaches that decide that having statistics is a, tactical advantage. And so refuse to report stats. And that's poor sportsmanship. That's bad. That's a bad look. And I don't understand why. And I have to field a lot of these because parents or players are messaging me wondering why they aren't in the stat leader sheet. They're like, I have 13 goals. And I'm like, well, your coach told me you had 0. So it's hurting their recruitment process. It's hurting their, accreditation there. And it's such an easy platform to use. It drives me nuts. But
I've seen the comments on your posts where people will be like, Little Falls won today too. Why is that not in here? And it's like, well, because nobody put the score in, right? Like they don't even. I've gone back. I keep my own spreadsheet, like I said, and I take the results off of the BTM or off of high school sports stats, and I've had to go back days to find scores. That took that long to be uploaded.
Yeah, it's really frustrating because you can do it on your phone, and everyone has a phone. And it's not like back in the day you had to, call in to the reporter and the bus was dark, so I couldn't read the book, so I can't call it in until wicked late. That struggle is gone. You can see your phone. You have your phone. Put it in. Back to the BTM. Are
Yes.
there any examples this season where the BTM clearly didn't match what you expected?
So the BTM doesn't get published until about 2 weeks before, right? So I would say for the most part, my data has aligned relatively closely. I know I personally had in my BTM, I had Modern Day 2 slots higher, so I had them above both Town of Webb and Lafargeville, and I really had to monkey with my parameters to make them match up with what High School Sports Stats was doing. It took a little while. I figured out that the regularization rate, the lambda, I was using a high one, which really compresses, and it looks like either they're not using one or they're using a really, really small one.
I nod my head because you're saying words, but I don't know.
So basically, it's this rate that condenses the data or spreads the data, right? That's what lambda does. So it can either keep everything kind of close together, or it can let it go wild, and the logarithms can go pretty wild because it's exponential growth. So I opted to keep my data pretty close, and when I did that, it valued my data significantly. So I had to adjust to find out, why my data was so far off, and found out that it looks like they keep their data pretty well.
Gotcha. So it's interesting that there are like these, I don't want to say like secret parameters, but like things that obviously people like me and not math savvy folks have no concept how they're working. And so like all of a sudden this BTM just spits out a number and just like, oh, okay. And this is what we have. Like, do you think there's a better system out there? Is this just a matter of refining the BTM that we have? What are your thoughts on?
I think that the idea of the BTM is awesome. I really do. I'm a big math nerd, and I probably spent $100 refining my own spreadsheet. I would be the first to tell you that if they wanted to publish the parameters, I'm all for transparency. I think that would be amazing. If you allow other people like me to be able to recreate, ultimately, that's what we want. Right? We do want something that can be recreated elsewhere, simply so like we can fact check, right? Like,
Right.
It's kind of like, you go back to the old BCS, the college football, and it's like our team's being ranked like this, and nobody really wants to trust the black box. So the Bradley Terry is complex. It's really elegant. They posted the parameters. I think that would go a little ways to help. I especially think with the Massey, the Bradley Terry Massey, which was introduced in the late 90s, early 2000s, that started to take into other accounts things that I'm not sure if High School Sports Stats uses. So that actually takes home field advantage into account.
Interesting.
Which typically the typical leaning is like if two teams were even, it gives the home field or the home team 55% chance to win as opposed to a 50-50 chance to win. I don't know if that's being used, and if it is being used, that does obviously affect how your scores are going to be.
Yeah.
And then the big question is, how are ties being established, right? So are they using Davidson, or are they using just 0.05 or 0.5, sorry, for ties? And if there is a tie parameter, so if you are doing Davidson and you have a tie, then that tie parameter can really punish you for ties or reward you for ties. And I look at the Hamilton girls who just tied Sequoia Valley on Saturday, and we were on the sidelines. I'm watching as a fan, and one of the fellow coaches says, "Hey, would you just pack it in and go for the tie right now? Like, it's 1-1, it's in overtime. Because would you just pack it in and go for the tie?" I said, honestly, without knowing the tie parameters, I don't know what I would do. And then when you look at it, they dropped from 3rd to 4th. mostly as a result of kind of game. So it does appear like there is a parameter, and it could be pretty high. And I think that does play a role in how you actually coach. So yeah, that's where I stand on parameters. One thing I would also like to see, you did ask, I apologize, I can ramble sometimes, is the Massey does also provide an outlet for score differential, which is
now you're talking about the controversy is score differential.
That's hotly contested. So I've been messing with my spreadsheet, and I started a score differential version. And what I did is I went ahead and I said, count every game a score differential of 5 for soccer, right? So if you beat a team by 5 or if you beat a team by 15, it's going to record 5 for you. And I think that's really, really important. If you were to look at score differential, which I think is important because right now we just have this binary, you won or you lost, right? Well, beating a team 1-0 and beating a team 5-0 are not the same thing. But beating a team 7-0 and beating a team 12-0, that really is kind of the same thing in my mind.
Yes.
So I would like to see that. I know it's a big ask, and there has to be a lot of
I think what happens,
coaches on it.
Right. I think what happens is like you have to start negotiating at where that cap is. And then, because it does get into a sportsmanship issue of, teams trying to run up the score, especially if someone doesn't understand what we mean by a goal differential. But like to understand that there's a cap would be a very important thing because there's no reason in this game to be burying a team unnecessarily just because you think goal differential might play a factor.
Yeah, which is why, softball has the run rule, right? I feel like that could be negotiated pretty easily. Once you start looking at sports like basketball, football, soccer, you would have to get coaches to agree on a number.
Where is that line where it's like, okay, this was a game that we won handily versus a game that we did win by quite a bit, but not, it wasn't like it was an easy victory, kind of like that.
Right.
And that is a tougher line, I think, to figure out, depending on the sport.
Well, and especially because you don't want to punish, for lack of a better term, bench athletes. Like, I'd love to put you in, Johnny, but if we drop below 20 points in this basketball game, we're going to look bad, so I'm not going to play you the last 4 minutes of the game.
Right.
Like, that would be very bad as well.
Yeah. All right, so last question. At the end of the day, does the best team still win? Or can the seeding actually change the outcome of a postseason run?
Seeding can definitely change the outcome of a postseason run. I fully believe that. However, my experience with high school sports stats and their Bradley Terry in particular is almost exclusively it has nailed it. And when you're looking at the semifinals, it's almost always 1 through 4, which the proof is in the pudding there. Those seem to be very spot on. I do think, if you were to look again at, if you were to look at the Class C standings right now, so we talk about the importance of being 1 through 4 at Hamilton. We always want to be 1 through 4 because that dictates 2 home games before you get to an away game. And you're looking at Cooperstown, who is just sitting on the cusp of that 4-5. And I can even pull up, if I were to look at their ability score. So, they're pretty far away. They're at 20 to 46, but they're not terribly far.
Yeah, the BTM has Westmoreland at a 686 and Cooperstown is at a 632. So that's only a 5% difference across the section.
To illustrate the point, though, that is a difference of in mind. So I have them at a 692 to a 639, almost similar. But if you were to look at their ability scores, which remember I gave you the formula there before, it's a 46 to a 20. So Westmo actually does like a
large advantage.
A significant, I'd say if they were to play, they'd be a 66% favorite to win that game.
Interesting.
Which is pretty significant.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, thank you very much for coming on and giving us this lovely breakdown. If you were to give the BTM a grade, how would you rate it overall?
I rate it as an idea, as an A. I rate the top 1 through 4 as an A, and I would rate transparency and reproducibility at like a C. I think they do great work. I think it's a much better approach than the old, very exploitable model that we had. I do think there should be some safeguards in. I don't know if we want to trust coaches with inputting such significant data without some fail-safes there. But overall, I think it's way better than anything that we've had in the past.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Love that insight. The math might be messy, but the games themselves will tell the real story. So we'll let the sectionals go out. Good luck to your team as they try to repeat as section and state champs. Thanks for joining us here on the CNY Sports Authority.
Thanks, Jay.
So let's get to our predictions. First, I would like to go through the girls soccer side of the tournament. Cincinnati is the number 1 seed in Class D, and I think their road to the finals is pretty clear. Watertown, IHC, and Poland. I'm going to give Poland the edge here. The Haver girls super fast. It's hard to compete with speed. Lafargeville and Town of Webb. I give the edge to Lafargeville. DeRuyter, Alexandria. DeRuyter has a pretty solid team. The only team that they haven't been able to overcome is Cincy. So I give them the edge in that first round. Copenhagen, Madison. Copenhagen has been on a tear this season. Another super strong year for the Golden Knights. Molly Babcock, Hallie Miller, Brielle Tenig. Great season for the Golden Knights. And they look to be one of the favorites again. Remsen has had a solid season, although coming down the stretch, the games have not been as secure as they would have wanted. Fabius Pompey having a great year down in the D's, coming down into the D's from C's. They take on Manlius Pebble Hill. I have Fabius over them. Sackett's Harbor versus Oriskany. I give Lily Green and the Patriots the advantage there. Take a look at the second round. That takes us to Cincy in Poland. Cincy is a complete team. I give them the edge over Poland. I do think this might be a little closer game than some might expect, but I expect the Lions to get it done. Lafargeville and DeRuyter. Eliza Smith is having an amazing season for the Red Knights, and I'm not going to bet against her here. I think Lafargeville takes down the Rockets at home to get a trip to the semifinals. Copenhagen Remsen, I think is going to be a really good game. Copenhagen has been there before and proven themselves. I'm going to take the Golden Knights here as well. Fabius Pompey and Sackett's. I think this is going to be an awesome game. And this side of the bracket, man, I think really Sackett's, Fabius, Copenhagen, and Remsen all have a solid shot to make a run to the championship game. And to be honest, it's just sort of a flip of the coin here. I'm giving it to Fabius Pompey. I think they're onto something special here this year, which moves them into the semifinals against Copenhagen. And I really wanted to say that this is going to be Copenhagen's year. They've been on the cusp for so long, and this could very well be it, but I don't know why. I'm just drawn, something about the vibes of this Falcons team. I've been drawn to Fabius Pompey, and in fact, I give Cincy the edge over Lafargeville, and when it gets to the finals, I know this might be crazy, but I'm going to go with Fabius Pompey instead of Cincy. I'm going to give the upstart Falcons the upset, hope for a victory here over Cincy. Cincy's level of competition has not been there this year, And I think it's finally going to come back and hurt them when we get to the championship game here. If you take a look at the past few seasons, that championship game has been a real tough proving ground. They have overcome those challenges in the end, so this group is tested and knows what it takes. But I don't know, I just feel like Fabius has got a little Team of Destiny vibe about them this year. Moving on to Class C. This is headed up by Tully, the number 1 seed. They were undefeated until the very last game of the season. They lost to Skinny Atlas at the end. And man, I think Tully's running away with this one. Although I do think, again, the BTM, like we were saying, is pretty solid. I think the top 6 teams in Class C have a legitimate shot at this thing. Tully is the favorite, and that is who I see winning. But Cooperstown is a dark horse here. They took down Sequoia Valley earlier this year. They're playing well. Bishop Luding Grimes has been having a phenomenal season. They're doing so well this year too. It's really hard to pick against any of these people. Dolgeville started up so hot, but Hamilton I do think is just clicking at the right time. They did tie Sequoia, which did hurt them in the end, but they kind of dominated that game from beginning to end, gave up a tough goal, like 30 yards out, just ended up going into the top corner of the keeper. But Hamilton has those pieces. But it's tough because in that next round, you've got West Canada Valley taking on Herkimer in the first round. I have West Canada moving on. Herkimer is a tough team. 12 seed is kind of crazy to me. Leah Bray is legit, but I do think West Canada Valley will figure out a way to keep Leah locked down, and I see them moving on. And Hamilton, West Canada, I don't know. This is such a toss-up. Hamilton is playing really well right now, but West Canada has been playing so good all season long. I'm giving West Canada Valley the tip of the hat here to move on to the semifinals. Down on the second half of the bracket, Beaver River playing up north. They haven't really challenged themselves this season, and I think that's what's going to hurt them in the end, is not having these kind of high caliber games that the BTM is looking for. Sequoia, I see moving past APW, and then I'm giving Sequoia the underdog bid to beat Beaver River in the second round. Mount Markham has a phenomenal team led by Kira Piersma, and they have a date with either Frankfurt or Westmoreland in the second round. I'm going to go with Frankfurt winning that first one, and this is such a tough game. I didn't know who to pick, whether to pick Frankfurt or Mount Markham. This was another coin flip. The Class C for boys and girls is so deep that any of these teams have such a good shot that I don't know how to pick against them. For this one, I'm going with Mount Markham just because I think Piersma has been having such a hot season. I think the Mustangs are primed and ready to go. They have not dropped a lot of games this season, so that gives me the hopes that, losing one game in the season makes me think you can get the job done here. While Frankfurt has stumbled a few times, the fact that this is going to be at Mount Markham also, I think, plays into the advantage here for the Mustangs. And so I have them moving on to face Sequoia in the semifinals. I do think Tully will get the job done against West Canada Valley. I think these games are going to be so close. I mean, we might have literally a shootout in the quarterfinal round for almost every matchup here. This is how close these teams are, I think. But I have Tully versus Mount Markham in the finals, and I give the edge to the Black Knights, who have been going hard all season, and I think that Patriot League is where it is at, hence why I'm going Fabius in the D's and Tully in the C's. Moving on to Class B, this one I think is Marcellus's to lose. Cece Powell is just a tremendous athlete, and I can see her leading the Mustangs all the way to the finals here. I have Canastota beating General Brown, Skinny Atlas taking down Onondaga, Lowville moves on to face Clinton, I think can take down South Louis, and I have Holland Patton over Adirondack in round one. I think this one goes mostly chalk. I have Phoenix taking down Holland Patton, Lowville taking down Clinton, and then I have Casanova and Marcellus meeting in the semifinals as well, with Marcellus moving on. The one sort of underdog pick that I have is Phoenix. This is sort of my boring bracket. I went really chalk on this one. And I have Marcellus Phoenix in the finals, with Marcellus taking home the ship this year. Moving on to Class A, I think, again, this one is very much New Hartford's to lose. New Hartford has had a phenomenal season. I feel like I'm giving Player of the Week nods to players on New Hartford every single week. They've just been on an absolute tear. Chittenango is a dark horse. Watch out for Chittenango. I do have them losing to West Hill in the quarterfinals, but they also have been having a really strong season as well. So watch out for the Bears on this one. They're my dark horse bid. If someone's going to upset the trend, I do think it would be Chittenango. CBA, I see getting to the semifinals with JD. JD just plays such a tough schedule through the year, and I think that rewards them in the end. And I see them getting to the finals, and I almost picked them to win this championship. I did think if there was going to be someone that could top New Hartford, it would be JD, but I just couldn't get myself to pick against the Spartans this year, so they're my favorite for Class A. Going to Double A, ESM. I have moving on pretty easily. Then Watertown and Whitesboro. I'm giving the edge to Whitesboro to make it to the semifinals. Only 9 teams on this bracket. West Jenny over Auburn. FM over Fulton, although I think that game has a chance to be super close. I do give West Jenny the nod over FM, and ESM getting to the finals to face off against the Wildcats. I don't know what it is. I just feel like West Jenny has a history of championships at that school, and I don't know, the vibes had me going West Jenny on this one, taking down the favorite in ESM, although ESM I do feel like is very much like New Hartford. They have been just top dog this season, but I think West Jenny can get it done. And that takes us to the final one for the girls, which is Class AAA. I have Syracuse United upsetting RFA in the first round. Unfortunately, I think that's pretty short-lived, and CNS, I think, takes this whole thing. Baldwinsville Liverpool is going to be a great game, and it is kind of a coin flip on those two between Baldwinsville and Liverpool. And then CNS, I have just as the champions. Same sort of reasoning. I just feel like there's something special in the water there in CNS, and I do think the North Stars will be the champions at the end. Moving on to boys soccer, Class D predictions. I have Hamilton coming down and repeating all the way through, although I do find certain parts of this bracket super interesting. Sackets Harbor, Belleville, Henderson face off in that first round, and this is a tough battle between a Sackets Harbor team who has played really well this season and then had a few duds here and there, and Belleville Henderson, who has had a tremendous record but really not playing tough opponents throughout this season. And I think that's where the BTM sort of hurt them and puts them on the road. And I think that home field advantage gives the Patriots the edge they need to take down the Panthers and move on to that second round, that quarterfinal round. McGraw, Town of Webb. If there is an upset to circle or highlight here, it is Town of Webb. They are a pretty good team. Chase Langworthy is a phenomenal player and could get this job done. If McGraw has a weakness, it is in their backfield. That defensive line, I think, could be exposed here in the playoffs. But man, Logan Moffitt and Caleb Sutton, Moffitt in the midfield and Sutton up top, are very hard to defend. There's a lot of speed and a lot of skill there that you have to contend with. So I do give McGraw the edge in this to move on over Town of Webb. Lyme and Cincy. Cincy's really been kind of heading the wrong direction. They're just not in rhythm at this. They're not in sync at this part of the season. And Lyme, I think, has really circled that semifinal match as where they want to get to. And I don't think Cincy's going to be getting in their way. Lots of offensive firepower here for Lyme. Alex Radley is leading all of Class D and actually might be leading all of Section 3 in points this season on so many goals and assists. And other weapons are around him this year. I feel like in previous years, he was sort of on an island, but Radley has some people that he can pass that ball off to, and Lyme is very dangerous. I would watch out for the Lakers, and as Ryan said earlier, they are one goal away from jumping much higher in these seeds. And I think the 5 seed hurts them here, but I think they can get in there and get the job done in McGraw. And that semifinal match between Hamilton and Lime is definitely a matchup that we should all be excited for. A repeat of last year. Lime went to Hamilton and lost. Hamilton kind of controlled things for the most part, but I think Lime really is looking at a revenge scenario here. On the bottom half of the bracket, we've got Fabius Pompey. I see DeRuyter. Copenhagen is another good game. And this is where it's so hard because DeRuyter has had games this year that they look phenomenal. But they've also had games that they have dropped that I don't know how to rationalize them dropping that game. So it's hard. I feel like Copenhagen could have a shot. And this is where, again, the disparity of being in that league, pushing them down in those rankings could hurt the Frontier League again. I'm going to take the Rockets to take down Copenhagen. Devins Whalen is legit, and he can play within that midfield or push up to be a forward, and he is an absolute threat for those Rockets, and I think he gets 1, if not 2 goals to take down Copenhagen at home. Poland, I think, handles Lafargeville very easily. Faith Heritage and Madison is another good game to watch. Madison has been playing phenomenally this late in the season, and they have just been so hard to score on that this matchup could come down to the very end. I do think Faith Heritage has that little leg up on Madison in depth, and so I'm going to give Faith Heritage the edge there. Another big matchup, and this is where Class D gets really interesting, is this quarterfinals matchup between Fabius Pompey and DeRuyter and Poland Faith Heritage. If you want to go see some great games, these are the games to go see. Fabius Pompey and DeRuyter, like I said, DeRuyter has played out of their minds and just absolutely dismantled a few teams this year. Fabius Pompey has played the toughest schedule of like any team, regardless of class. So they are battle tested and proven, but they haven't really put too many teams away. They seem to play a very defensive style, which means while they can beat anybody, I do also think that they could lose to anybody too. And that's a danger when you play that style. And it puts a mark on them that should be worrisome, and I think that game becomes really interesting and exciting. I do give the Falcons the edge here, and I think they'll get past DeRuyter. Poland Faith Heritage is another one. Poland has been playing great lately, and Faith Heritage is just a solid team, and I don't know, and I wanted not to just be totally chalk on all the brackets, so this to me was sort of a coin flip here, and I gave Faith Heritage the edge. Poland, no slight to Poland here. They are a tested program, having to sort of, people thought they were going to be rebuilding this year, losing Carter Cookingham and a few other players to graduation, and they haven't. They have not rebuilt. They have just been right in the mix again, and they've been playing great down the stretch. They're a team that's very dangerous. I did give it to Faith Heritage based on nothing more than just to be fun, and this is why I don't win any college basketball pools. Looking at the semifinals, I have Hamilton and Lime. Although Lime circled this game from the get-go, I do have the Emerald Knights beating the Lakers to get to the finals. Same thing with Fabius Pompey and Faith Heritage. I could see this game going into a shootout. If a game goes to a shootout, I'm giving Fabius Pompey the advantage. They obviously practice it a lot. They have experience in shootouts. They had to get through them in last year's run through class season. It's the style of play they play. They're just really good defensively and stopping you from scoring. So I have Fabius Pompey winning and getting the championship, and that should be a fantastic game. Hamilton did beat Fabius Pompey early in the season, but that was really early in the season, and these two teams do not look the same as they did then. So definitely make sure you pop out to that one, see if Hamilton can defend their championship. Moving on to Class C, this one is so hard. There are 6 teams that legit have chances of winning this. I think talking to Ryan, he ran a few simulations He said the top 5 teams each had about a 20% chance of winning this title. There is no standout here. All these teams are so good. It's going to be great soccer. And I appreciate those teams that, stepped out of the tournament to let these teams that are so good. The seeds were so divided. There were the haves and the have-nots. So I think this will be a exciting tournament here. Sequoia and Thousand Islands, I like Zyland them. I'm going to take the Vikings over Sequoia in round 1. Westmo and Sandy Creek, I think Westmo has no problem getting past Sandy Creek. Cooperstown and the Syracuse Academy of Science. Cooperstown has been playing really, really well right now. I'm not going to bet against the Hawkeyes on that one. Cooperstown takes that. Herkimer and Mount Markham. Man, if you had asked me at the beginning of the season, I probably would have gone with the Mustangs. I just don't like the way the Mustangs have been playing lately. They've been dropping games and playing games way closer to teams that really should not be in the mix. They have talented kids on that team, and I don't know what it is. There's just something is not clicking. And if they can get it to click, watch out. Herkimer could be on upset alert if they get it to click for the playoffs. But the way the regular season ended, I'm not too confident that that is going to click. So I'll give me the Magicians in that matchup. And then Tully and Waterville. I don't know why Waterville went to the tournament, to be honest. Give me the Black Knights over that one. And then right in the quarterfinal rounds, I don't know who you pick. Besides Bishop Ludden Grimes, I think has a solid advantage over Thousand Islands. Give me the Gaelic Knights moving on there. Westmo and Cooperstown is going to be a phenomenal game. I think this is an overtime winner. I think I'm going to give Westmo the edge here, and I'm going to say it's probably like a 2-1 overtime game. Cooperstown is extremely likely to win this, but I do think, again, maybe home field advantage plays a factor here. So give me Westmo in overtime. MPH and Herkimer. MPH was sort of my preseason favorite here to just be a really strong team, so I'm happy to see them at the 2 spot. They've made me less confident in them as the season has gone on. They are very talented. Andy Lervy is a phenomenal player, and they have the pieces to make it happen. They have a program there that is in very good shape, so I do think they get past the Magicians and move to the semifinals. Frankfurt and Tully is going to be a great game. Tully was playing some great soccer coming down the stretch. They did kind of stumble here, and losing to Bishop Ludden Grimes had to shake the confidence, and for that reason, Frankfurt, especially because Frankfurt gets to play this game at home, Frankfurt is so fast. And that is why when we get to the semifinals, I have Frankfurt taking down MPH. I think that speed and balance from the Maroon Knights is going to be the difference as they take down the Trojans as a 3-2 sort of upset in the semifinals. Bishop Ludden Grimes has been playing great lately. I'm not going to go against them there. I think they can take down Westmoreland. And because I got to witness that speed firsthand, I got to watch Frankfurt play and absolutely dismantle my team entirely. I'm going to give Frankfurt the edge here, and they're my pick to win Class C boys. But like I said, this is one of the toughest brackets to predict, in my opinion. Class B, West Hill should be the favorites all the way, and they have earned that 1 spot, rightfully so. I don't see any problems with them playing in the winner of that play-in game, Jordan Elbridge and Sherburne. Holland Patton, Utica Academy of Science. I like the Golden Knights. I know nothing about UAS. I'm going to pick UAS because, I don't know. It doesn't matter who I'm going to pick because I think West Hill beats them in the next round anyway. So give me one little upset here. Loudville, I think, moves past Canastota. Marcellus, I think, handles Little Falls pretty easily. Skinny Atlas is going to move past South Louis or Lafayette. That one doesn't really matter. Oneida and Phoenix, I give Phoenix a pretty solid edge. Kaz, I don't think has a problem. Clinton Solvay should be a good game. Clinton played Hamilton really well, got a nice win over Hamilton. I'll give Clinton the edge there for that reason. And because Clinton, I think, has been playing so well, I'm going to take them in the next round to upset Kaz. There's my upset pick, and dark horse are the Clinton Comets. However, I do think this comes down to the Lakers from Skinny Atlas, who I have making a run all the way to the finals, where they, I believe, will take down West Hill like they did recently. I was told West Hill didn't have some of their best players in that game, and Skinny Atlas only won 2-1 in overtime. I think this is going to be a great game. I like the confidence factor that Skinny Atlas just won this matchup. So give me the Lakers in the end. Lowville West Hill should also be a good game. Shout out to the Raiders in Lowville having a great season. I do think West Hill is just a little too much. Moving on to Class A, New Hartford, I think, is obviously the team to beat. And much like the girls, I think this one comes down to New Hartford or JD. I don't think there's too many teams besides them that are really in this mix here. Cortland had a solid turnaround season. I like the Perk Bull Tigers getting past Mexico. And I also love the turnaround that the Camden Blue Devils have had. They've sort of been a laughingstock of Class A for a while now. And to be in the mix and have such a solid season, great turnaround there for the Blue Devils. I think they can get past VVS. We'll see if that happens or not. But I think JD beats whoever gets there anyway. JD is going to be a legit title shot, and I have in the finals New Hartford and JD, and give me the Red Rams to take this one. Give me JD. Get at me in the comments if you disagree. In Double A, this one I see FM is a solid favorite, but I wanted to shake things up. And when I take a look at FM, I'm thinking there's one team that's got a chance at taking FM down. And unfortunately for FM, they meet them in the semifinals, and that is West Genesee. Give me the Wildcats as the 4-1 upset to make it to the finals, where I also see Nottingham making quite the run and getting there. And give me Nottingham to win the Double A title in boys soccer this year. I like what they're doing in Nottingham. In Triple A, we only have 7 teams making the tournament. I see Baldwinsville moving right through. I do think Proctor and Liverpool is going to be a fantastic game. This is sort of a flip of the coin to me here. I took Liverpool this time. I don't know. I'm second guessing this already. I think Proctor could also make a run to the championship. They're playing so well. They have so many offensive weapons in Utica. But give me Liverpool. Give me Baldwinsville, and I have the Bees as the title winners in Triple A. And finally, let's go to field hockey. Not so many teams in each of these brackets, a little easier to break down. Class D, I have Little Falls being the team to beat. Give me Little Falls. I see them taking this title. Although, man, there are some great. Weedsport has been on an absolute tear to finish the season, and Weedsport has won a ton of games that I don't think anyone expected them to. They have played some great teams and won, and they could do that to Little Falls. Downside is the Wolverines have also played a bunch of games that you would think that they would definitely win, and they didn't. And so I give them clicking and finding their groove against Port Byron to move them into the semifinals. And then I think the pedigree and rest for Little Falls is too much, and the Mounties take that semifinal matchup. Give me Morrisville over New York Mills. Give me Clinton, the tried and true Comets over Cato Meridian. Morrisville, Eaton, and Clinton just played, and it was a great game. Morrisville won 3-1. I don't know how to pick that. It's so hard. And because of that recency bias, I'm going to take Morrisville over Clinton. Although, man, Leah Randall, all the Randalls in Clinton have been playing phenomenally this year. It's so hard to choose against the Comets. But give me Morrisville because of that recency bias. But I do think Little Falls is just a step above everybody this season. So give me the Mountains to win Class D. When it comes to Class C, this is another one that I do think is a lot of toss-ups. Mount Markham gets a bye in that first round, and they play the winner of Canastota and Oneida. I like Canastota over the Express there, but I think Mount Markham can get past Canastota. Should be a good game. Kaz and Holland Patton. Holland Patton's record makes you think that they really shouldn't be in the mix. Kaz has been having a phenomenal season. I don't know, it's hard when it gets to playoff times to choose against pedigree. It's the Blue Bloods have been there, they've proven themselves, and I think that's what leads me to Holland Patton, and that takes us to Mount Markham and Holland Patton in the championship, and I picked Holland Patton there too. Mount Markham has had a phenomenal season, a great year. Layla Rice leading the Mustangs, but I don't know. I went with the Golden Knights to finish things off this season. We'll see if they can do it. In Class B, I have VVS going all the way, although New Hartford and Homer should be a great matchup. New Hartford, I picked Homer, but man, New Hartford could definitely take that game. And VVS is definitely not a runaway for this. I was really torn. I do have Camden going past ESM to face Whitesboro, and I think Camden's just playing really well right now, so I'm giving Camden that edge over Whitesboro to make it to the finals. And just with the blue blood thing again, I had a hard time choosing against Camden here, but VVS has had such a good year. Give me the Red Devils to win Class B field hockey. And the last bracket to look through is Class A. RFA, I think, has just been a standout team all season long. Give me Rome Free Academy to win Class A field hockey. Liverpool over FM. I don't think they can take down RFA. I think it'll be a nice game, but I think RFA could move past that one 4-1. Baldwinsville takes on CNS or Auburn. I have CNS. Baldwinsville CNS could be a really good game. I was very conflicted on who to take there. But I do think that the Knights, the Black Knights of RFA, are your field hockey champions at the end of this season. The brackets are set, the debates are alive, and the road to the championship starts now. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back maybe at the end of this week to go over where the games have gone and where we stand now in sectionals. And let's see if I got right and if the BTM really got it right. Thanks for watching.
The whole world was a playground until the sun went down. We had it all when we didn't have